Hello, and welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm your host, Patrick Cristiano, the publisher of TheaterLife.com, and we're coming to you from the LTV studio in Wainscott. I have a special guest, my friend, who I see all the time at many events all over the Hamptons in the summer, Durell Godfrey.
That's me.
Durell is a photographer and an artist. She's a staff photographer for The Star. You probably see her pictures.
East Hampton Star, you have to say.
Oh, the East Hampton Star, excuse me. Thank you, Durell.
Otherwise, I won't be the staff photographer for the East Hampton.
Durell is the staff photographer for the East Hampton Star. Let's get that straight. That was my mess up.
Okay.
And welcome. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much
I'm delighted to be
doing
here.
This. I learned so much about you just over the weekend.
Wow. And there's been many, many years worth of stuff piled up behind me. I carry a lot of baggage around.
You know, I know you as a photographer, and I see you at the social events all the time, so I didn't know your history. And Durell is, she's called a tight, what is tell me?
I have what used to be called a tight hand.
Oh, a tight hand, that's it.
A tight hand, yes.
Which means you can draw small.
It means I can draw small and I can draw clearly. My father used to say that I was an expository drawer, which meant that I could draw, which I had to for many years for Glamour. I had to draw how to bone a chicken. Well, they photograph that in cookbooks a lot, but if you draw it, you don't have little hands in there. So you've got to invent the way to explain that this thing lifts up and that thing lifts up. So I became very good at little arrows that would come out and give directions on how to do something.
So your tight hand, which meant drawing small, led you.
Which meant not sketchy. It meant one confident line that would get from here to there without the diversion of a wiggly line or for instance a wash or color or anything like that. Very clear.
So it led to a 32-year career at Glamour magazine.
In part, it did, yes.
Which is amazing.
I studied graphic design. My real job at Glamour was doing graphic design in the promotion art department, which meant that I was designing what we called junk mail. Who needs it, who reads it, who sees it was our mantra, but it was mostly material about why you should advertise in Glamour. So it would be sales pieces, promotional pieces, posters, things that would encourage advertisers to advertise in Glamour. My portfolio got seen by the art director at Glamour. This is the promotion art department, editorial art department. Same floor in the Gray Bar building, but sort of a town and gown situation. And the art director at Glamour at the time was Mickey Denhoff, who ended up working as a volunteer art director and so forth at Guildhall many, many years later. But Mickey Denhoff was on vacation, and her second in command was George Hartman at Glamour, and he saw my portfolio through the, the network of how I got the job to begin with, even though I really got my job at Glamour because I had been a makeover with Amy Green in the beauty department many years
ago. You used the phrase before, gown and glamour. What is that?
Oh, town and gown.
Oh, town and
which
gown.
Which is the business side versus the social side.
I never heard that before.
Out here it would be south of the highway.
North of the highway.
North of the highway. The working dudes and the. So the editorial considered themselves to be the high end, and the working people were the promotional people who sold the advertising that got the magazines. Got the magazines going. Anyway, so I got the job freelance illustrating for Glamour for the whole of the 1970s. I was the only illustrator that they used.
Oh, how cool.
Editorially, which is where the How to Do Anything Better guide came in.
Well, it's what I wanted to ask you about, because you worked for this, you did something called How to Do Anything Better, which we were talking about, which
was
is
part of the editorial makeup of Glamour magazine. It was an 8-page section in the front of the magazine, ran every month. It engaged the readers in so many ways that the readers would write letters. They would write me fan letters because they would see my little credit line at the bottom of the drawing. I didn't write the copy. I didn't come up with the answer to the question.
But in this section, they would delineate a problem, and you would have to illustrate it, correct?
Many things, yes. How to pronounce French perfume, for example. Giving the way you would say Shalimar, for example, to somebody who had only seen it written but didn't know how to say it. So we would write it out phonetically, but it would be in a drawing. So there'd be the profile of a girl, a young woman, who would be saying in handwritten type, Shalimar, obsession, that kind of thing. I mean, it was just to make it easier for the reader to know how to do something in a seamless, easy way for her.
So I love the example you were sharing with me before about the girl's boyfriend that is always late and she doesn't like it. And how do you deal with it?
They loved, there was a little teeny section in there called Sticky Situation of the Month. People would write in, but we would also cook them up ourselves within the editorial framework of the magazine. For example, if your in-laws ask you, when are you going to make me a grandmother? And you've just gotten married and you're not inclined to have a baby immediately, how do you answer that? That's a really sticky situation. And you say then, Glamour said, you might say to your in-law, well, when you're old enough to be a granny, we'll make you a granny, but you don't look old enough yet, dear. And that deflects the question. If your boyfriend, for example, is constantly late, it makes you crazy. What do? I don't remember the solution to that, by the way.
Really?
I really don't. But I remember the drawing because it was a very hard concept to have. What I did was I drew this young woman who looked like me because I knew how to draw me. And she was, sort of looking out at the reader, and she's looking at her watch, and she's frowning. And in the background, way back here, is this guy, really, was about this big in the drawing because I could draw really small. And I drew to size. So this whole illustration would have been maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches by 2 inches in a magazine.
Wow.
And I could get a lot of really crazy expressions and things like that. But he would be running. And here she was looking at her watch, and she's basically got smoke coming out of her ears because she's so furious and they're late for the movie or whatever it is. So that was the kind of thing that I did. And I had fan mail. I would get fan mail from readers. They loved me. For the whole of the 1970s, I had a relationship with the Glamour reader.
Oh, that's fabulous.
They knew when I got my hair cut. They knew when I had a new boyfriend, which I did. They knew that I had cats. They would send letters to my cats. My cats say hello to your cats. Really.
Oh, that's cool. That's really
Unlike
cool.
now, where everybody is so sophisticated, you look at the models and they're all snarling at the camera if they're looking at the camera at all. But in those days, not everybody knew how to do everything, and they didn't know how to hire anybody to do the thing, so they just had to kind of wing it, and Glamour magazine was the tool by which they winged it.
But while you were there, you had an editor, is that? Oh, look at that.
We're getting a comment here from an editorial comment.
Let me see.
There was a How to Do Anything Better guide editor.
But is this the one who asked you to take photographs? This is what I'm looking for.
Okay, the clue to the photographs was that that was in my freelance job. All this drawing stuff was freelance. For my job, my 9 to 5 at Glamour magazine job in the promotion art department, where I also drew. This gets a little woozy, but I was one of the obligations was that we had to go, and it was an art department of 8 people at that point. We would have to go, for instance, to a sales meeting and take photographs at a sales meeting of the hijinks and so forth that would go on at sales meetings, or behind the scenes at an event where, for instance, if somebody had won a contest at Glamour, one of these promotional business contests, they'd be brought to New York and they'd get a makeover, and I would go with the camera to Kenneth's salon or to Warren Tricome, whatever, and photograph them getting their nails done and getting their hair done and so forth, and then we'd make little booklets and give them to them.
Oh, wow.
So I got used to taking pictures, being comfortable with people, saying, "Oh, no, wait a minute, could you put your heads together and stuff," which oddly translated into what I did this weekend, which is go to events and tell people to put their heads together and take pictures of them. Unfortunately, I have to get names when I do that, which is really...
But who was it that asked you if you saw anything interesting to go take a photograph?
Well, okay, fast forward through 1970, towards the end of so let's say 1980.
And you started at Glamour what year?
In 1969.
Wow.
So I was still at Glamour at that time. I was drawing for them, and I met my husband. He had a house in East Hampton. We started coming out here on weekends. He knew a bunch of people out here. One of them was Ken Robbins, the late Ken Robbins, a wonderful photographer, who's married to Maria Robbins, who was a cookbook illustrator, or a cookbook writer. She needed somebody to illustrate her cookbooks. I started drawing for her. At the same time, their friend Doug Kuntz, who was a wonderful, fabulous photographer, was working at the Star as a staff photographer. And he said to us at a dinner party, if you ever seen anything that you feel like would be good for the East Hampton Star, and we were reading the Star. My husband had been a faithful reader, and I was now a weekender, and so I was reading. And so they said, if you ever see anything really cool, take a picture of it, turn it into the Star. The Star's always interested in pictures. About 2 weeks later, we were on holiday, we were driving around, and we were leaving the house, and my husband said, you know, we really ought to remember what Doug said, always take the camera with us. So we went back to the house, got the camera.
Supportive husband.
Oh, well, he was an art director. He was, he knew, how to tell a story with a photograph. That was what his job was, really.
Right.
So he said, let's go home, we'll get the camera. So we went home, we got the camera. We're on Newtown Lane, heading to Sag Harbor just to poke around. And right in the middle of the street on Newtown Lane, down towards that dog leg that goes to the high school, is a piano in the middle of the street, upside down. Upside down in the middle of the street. This is not something you see every day. Pull over. I take the camera because he's driving. I take the camera, I get out. I take a picture of this thing that's there. It's an upright piano, and it is this way with its little teeth hanging out. Took the picture, called Doug. What are we supposed to do? He said, bring the film in, I'll develop it for you. We'll figure it out. We'll make a print. And, if it looks good, I'll submit it for you. So the next day or 2 days later, I guess, we got a phone call. We were on vacation now in East Hampton, so we were able to get a phone call out here. This is in the early 90s, and 1993, in fact. And so Doug called, and he said, one of the pictures looks really good. I'm going to make a print for it. Following day, I got a call from a woman with a British accent. This is in East Hampton, and she said, hi, my name is Sheridan Sensegundo, and I work for the Star, and we'd like a little more information about this piano. I said, I don't know. I don't know anything about it. It fell off the truck. She said, okay, well, we're thinking about running the picture, so, thank you very much.
Now, did you know it fell off the truck, or did you just make that?
No, I just made it up. I mean, if it had to have fallen off the truck, it didn't walk there.
Well, I mean, someone might have dumped it there because they were mad at their
They
wife.
might have dumped it there, but this is not a place. This was really,
Right.
If you're on Newtown Lane and you're heading towards the high school and you're about to make
I know
that
that
dog
dog
leg, you
handle.
do not want to have a piano in the middle of the street in front of you. So the next day was a Thursday. I knew the paper came out on a Thursday, and I went down to what was then called the Blue something or another, where you could buy a newspaper, where I guess Turpan is now in East Hampton. And there's my picture on the front page of the Star in black and white. The Star was black and white in those days.
And we have a picture of it. Let's show the cover. Here's your cover.
There's my cover.
With the upside down piano
Yes.
on the Star.
That's it.
And how long now after this before you started working for the Star?
Oh, the very next week. I mean, I was totally the Star in those days when it was folded in quarters, so that is what you saw. If you were buying the paper, you saw just the photograph and the logo and the price. That was in 1993. I looked at it because I still had it.
So now you've been with
My
the
files.
Star ever since.
So after that, you become totally addicted. I mean, it's like winning an Emmy for the first time you walk on stage or get on TV, winning an Oscar. I mean, it was fabulous. I won. How could I not continue to do it? So every weekend we would come out, and I would say to my husband, who liked to drive and I did not, let's go look for pictures. That's what we did on weekends. We would go look for pictures.
And so the evolution followed, and you became.
And then
the staff
eventually,
photographer.
Helen Rattray sent me a note, and she said, if you're ever out here more, please let us know. I suspect that she was hoping that I would be as loyal as I have been, and not sort of shop my pictures
Right.
around.
Which you have been, which is great for you.
And I have been totally loyal, and I framed that letter from her. Because it was a letter in those days, not an email.
We should have brought that.
Please work for more, work for us more and more. And it turned out that was just perfect, because eventually my husband retired, and then I retired from New York. We sold our apartment, and I came out here. What am I going to do with myself?
It's great.
There's
But
the
now
start.
you've morphed into this
This was a really
adult coloring books.
Yes,
adult
this is a really funny thing, because the way I draw here in these books is exactly the way I drew for Glamour. It's a little bigger because my eyesight is not as brilliant as it was in the old days, but I'm still drawing basically the same kind of thing I drew for Glamour.
So, no, wait, this
is the first book.
This came out in 2015. This is your
That's
first coloring book. And the pictures in it, they're not colored. The people color them in. Is that what
That's right.
happens?
It's-
And this example you have up here
Comes from the
it's
second
the second
one.
book, but this one's colored in.
By me.
It didn't start out colored. It came out not colored. So
That's
your first one had no...
A coloring book is really, it's just line drawings.
Can we zoom in on what just
Where
one of
are
these
we?
pictures? Can you get this or not?
I don't know where to point it.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
They've got it. Just hold it up like that.
Okay.
There you go. This is what one of the drawings look like before an adult starts to color it.
It's not the kind of subject matter a kid would find particularly
Yeah, only adults would like this, right?
But what I have developed is a following. See, for instance, you can color in the coats here. And
Okay.
okay,
So this was your first.
this is the first one, and the way it evolved was that a friend. I volunteer at the LVIS, which is the Ladies Village Improvement Society, in the
Right.
basement, sorting clothes. And one of the ladies down there, a woman called Mo Cohen, who I consider to be my, now she's my new best friend, absolutely. She said to me in I guess it was January of 2015, I just read a thing in the New York Times about coloring books and how hot they are, and for coloring books for grown-ups. And she said, you draw, why don't you look into that? And I had this eureka moment. It was really a eureka moment, because I had been doing cookbooks for Maria Robbins and her editor for years, just little things, how to draw, cookies for Christmas and chocolate and little tiny spot illustrations.
Right.
And I had a relationship with the editor at that point, because I had been sending drawings into her. That day I went home and I emailed Marian Litzy at, then she was at Penguin, which she still is actually. And I emailed her and I said, you know that thing that in the New York Times, that was in the New York Times yesterday about coloring books? And she said, yeah, I saw it. And I said, well, I can do that for you.
So she published your first coloring book?
She did. She said, you can do that for me? I said, oh yes, I can do that for you. Send me some samples. She said, I sent 3 samples within 2 days.
She said yes.
She said yes immediately. And how soon can you have 75 drawings?
Oh, how cool. How long did it take you?
Well, I said, how long do you need? Because I'm not going to turn it down. 75 drawings, fine. I can do whatever, I can draw 75 drawings in one day, really, if I need to.
So how long did you get?
They ended up needing 60, and I did them they gave me an extension, so I did them in 70 days.
Oh, fabulous. And so
Which is essentially one
this,
day.
now, your second book came to be because someone wrote a book called 14,000 Things to Be Happy About. Is that it?
Yes. Many years ago, 20 years ago, Barbara Ann Kipfer, with whom I collaborated on this book, she wrote a book called 14,000 Things to Be Happy About. Even though it ends in a preposition and you're not really, it's a funny title, it sold very, very well for Workman Press. And she wanted me to do the illustrations for the book. I did not get that assignment, but she stayed sort of congenial friends with me for years after that. She'd call up and check in. How are you doing? I saw this drawing that you did in Glamour. It was really cute. She was a big fan. She would save little clippings of my drawings and tell me, oh, I really love that picture of the cat.
For
that
how
you
many
did,"
years?
Or something. Oh, well, I mean, for the 10 years that I was drawing for Glamour from time to time, she'd get in touch with me and say, that was really a good one. So I thought, well, to follow this coloring book up, I asked this publisher, the Random House, people, the Random House Penguin, if they wanted to do a volume 2. And they said, well, we're not so sure. But I really wanted to do another one. So I got in touch with Barbara Ann, and I said, well, why don't we collaborate on a coloring book? Your text, your 14,000 things to be happy about, surely there are enough things to be happy about that we can throw them into some drawings and call it a collaboration. She was very nice to say, well, you're doing 3/4 of the work, so we'll do it a 75-25 split.
Oh, that's very generous.
That was really fantastic.
It doesn't happen often.
And I got her agent, which was really fabulous.
Wow. Who's the agent?
I'm not even going to say. But anyway, so he sold the book. He took it around, and he ended up selling it to HarperCollins, which had an imprint of Harlequin. And so the Harlequin HarperCollins people put this one out, this one out. And the way it worked was that I had a lot of things that I was willing to draw. It's essentially, I was willing to draw that. I wanted to draw the carousel, the LVIS carousel that they have at the fair. I wanted to draw postcards. There were a lot of things that I wanted to draw.
So are a lot of the things you wanted to draw the things that make you happy, or they're just things that you were inspired
Well, they make me happy because I know how to draw them. I'm not going to draw something I don't know how to draw. It just is going to be too much stress. So I gave away 1/4 of each page to type. And so I invented the layouts, which would be a third, a third, and a third, like this thing, or one whole drawing with a space. I made the drawings, and then I would send them off to her.
So let's zoom in. Here we are. So here we have this your 1/4 of pages is what she would write on. You would do the drawings, and you would send.
I did that entire thing, and including the type, which I would design, and the title of the thing, which was sort of up for negotiation.
So you called this blooms.
Because I wanted to draw window boxes.
But you left that negotiable about the title.
I left it a little bit negotiable because sometimes they didn't really love the title.
Your whole life's a negotiation.
Yeah, heaven knows. But there was only one, and I can't even remember what it was. I think it was either brunch or picnic or something like that, that they didn't really like, and we wanted to do something else. And there was one copy change that I made, and that was it.
But I just want to remind our viewers again, this on the poster, these are colored in. But in the book, they're not colored in, and you get the opportunity to color this however you want, to make your blooms look however you want them to look. Now, this came out, what year?
It came out last year.
Just last year.
2016.
And you're going to be at Authors Night?
I'm going to be at Authors Night at the
August
East Hampton
12th.
Library. Yes. And I will be there with this book, and these people have kindly, my original coloring book has also, they're going to send some too. So this book and this book.
Over here, just put it here.
Okay. They're both available for me to sign. And
you're going to be there. How many authors are there?
Well, Ann Coulter's going to be there.
You ever been there before?
I have. I was there last year for this.
So this is your second time?
So this is my second one. Probably will be my last one unless I can figure out another way to do it.
No.
The coloring book industry is like a little bit soft at this point.
It is, really?
Yeah, a lot of people have done them.
Oh, well, don't think negatively.
Well, people self-publish. As soon as there's something that's hot, they do it. But my fans, I made a Facebook page for each one of these books.
What is it?
A Facebook page is
what is it? What's it called? So they can.
Oh, it's called Color Me Cluttered. It's called the name of each one of the books.
So Color Me Cluttered.
If you're on Facebook, you can type in Color Me Cluttered, and you will find the Facebook page for this book.
And if they want to get a copy, they can find out how to get it there.
Well,
too?
they can get that they can get the book from Amazon. But
okay.
the Facebook page is not selling the book. It's just a place for people to show off how they color things in. So somebody might, for instance, take this picture, which is also in the book, and color it in, but not you as an orange cat.
Right.
Somebody did a Siamese cat. Somebody else might have it be raining outside. Somebody filled in the checkerboard of the tablecloth.
So on your
Everybody
Facebook
has versions, and on the Facebook page, I give little
different
shows.
versions?
That's right. I give
cool.
little shows to the people who around the country, around the world, will color in these pages. I have friends, Facebook friends, in Pakistan, in Malaysia. Their color palette is completely different. They use very, very bright colors. I like to use, sort of a smushy pencil when I color things in, as I did with this one, but other people use watercolors. They paint. Irina Erusov, who is a lovely woman whom I know out here, she collages these books.
Oh, wow.
She'll find here, for instance, here there's a shopping bag, a canvas bag. She'll find something in a newspaper and she'll glue it on there so it looks like a different kind of bag. She doesn't want to color it in. In part, she colors it in, but she wants to collage them. I mean, people approach things in a very, very different way. When
We're getting short of time.
Oh, okay.
Believe it or
Anything
not.
else you want to know?
I just want to
What's
remind
coming
Amazon.com, they can find the books if they want to.
Absolutely.
They can go to the Facebook page and see how other people have done it and learn all about your coloring books.
Yes, and
What do you have on your schedule for the Star, the East Hampton Star this weekend?
for this weekend, we'll be let's see, there's the Guildhall Galas coming up,
Looking forward
which
to
I'll
it.
go to. I'm sure you'll be there.
Yes, we'll see you.
And Author's Night is Saturday night, and that pretty much is going to eat up the day. But there's the Fisherman's Fair. I mean, it's a busy,
Yeah, it's a busy weekend.
it's a busy
We have
month.
the opening at Bay Street, too.
Really, and Bay Street. I mean, there's so much going on. It could just make you crazy. And where people find time to color in coloring books is beyond me. I found time to draw them to draw them, but finding time to color
Thank
them,
you,
then I don't.
Durell. Thank you
it's a
so much for
pleasure.
coming.
Thank
It's
you.
delicious. I love
It's
learning
always
about
fun to talk about myself. It's really kind of you, and thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure.